Okay, when you hear me say 50%, what do you think? 50%? Half. Do you think that's good, bad?
Fair.
Fair. What if I said that the divorce rate is 50%? How's that feel now? Not so good. And it has been 50% for years. There's a lot of contributing factors, but we cannot seem to find one thing that contributes to the divorce rate. By that I mean, you have some people that have had affairs, they don't necessarily divorce. So we cannot say all couples that all couples that have affairs divorce. We can't say that. Domestic violence. We cannot say that everyone that has domestic violence in the relationship divorces. We can't say that. But one thing we can say is that the 50% is definitely attributable to communication. So here we are in lesson 3. We've already done the theory of communication. We've already done just the dynamics, emotion regulation, things like that, emotion identification, barriers to communication. We've already done that. So here we are in lesson 3, where we're just going to talk about a tool that we can now use that can add to hopefully better communication. Here in Colorado, there is a slightly different number. It's not 50%. At one point, it was up to 75%. And that was because possibly our military affiliations. On the south of us, in Colorado, there is Fort Carson, 23,000 to 25,000 active duty military. At any given time, it ranges between that number. On the east of us, we have Schriever Air Force Base, Peterson Air Force Base, 10,000, 7,500 to 10,000. Then we have the north of us, the Air Force Academy, who just graduated 820 or something like that, of the nation's leaders, upcoming leaders, and we just graduated them May or June of this year, 2016. So we have a community that's affected by what? Deployments, not being together, the trauma of what happens when they deploy, war, financial, just so much. So that number is higher. In my private practice, because I'm a licensed professional counselor in Colorado, at one point I had to shift the focus of my practice to accommodate the military community that surrounds me. I wouldn't change a thing other than maybe to have some of these tools at the beginning as opposed to at the end. So, like I said, we're on lesson 3, which you already know. We're going to do another communication tool next time, which would be the PrEP. And then after that, we're going to do a little bit of the neuroscience of communication. What happens in our brain when we have conflict and those kind of things. Everybody tracking with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me let you hear this quote. And as I'm pushing my PowerPoint, you actually have copies of the PowerPoint in front of you. So whatever I'm reading, you already have. Listen to this quote, and it says, in addition to a satisfied relationship, so this is a complete journal article, in addition to a satisfied relationship, being an important resource in adulthood, let me read that better. In addition to a satisfied relationship being an important resource in adulthood, satisfied couples have been identified as living longer, healthier, happier lives. So that's nothing that we made up. In satisfied relationships, we live longer, we live happier, we live better. So you can find that also in the case for marriage, which I think is one of your resource materials on your syllabus. But listen to this quote. Also, you have this on your PowerPoint. When couples live dissatisfied lives, the opposite occurs. Some of the many problems include social role impairment, impaired work function, general stress, poor health, increased suicidal ideation, and marital violence. So you're satisfied over here, you live longer, you live happier, things are better. You're dissatisfied over here, there's suicidality, domestic violence, overall poor functioning. And that's what the research shows. So being in that Colorado Springs environment where I was surrounded by a military population that was affected, I felt that I needed to do something. Here you are, in this room, we have pastors, we have licensed professionals, we have church laity. This is information that you can utilize to do what you do, maybe a little bit better. Okay, so what I want to do, just to preface this a little bit, is to show a video. It's 2 minutes and 11 seconds, and it's weird things that couples argue about. So let's go ahead and just look at the screen. We'll watch that video, and then we'll talk about it.
What are you doing?
Drying my hands?
Those are the decorative towels. You can't use them.
Why?
Because they're decorative.
Then why are they out?
Because they're decorative.
That's literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
That is disgusting. Can you please go do it in the bathroom?
Why? I don't want to miss the dessert round.
No, you do this all the time, and I'm constantly finding
I don't know where that went. How wonderful life is. Now you're in my world. My world. It's my world.
No, it is the world. Close all the way. Close all the way. Close all the way. Isn't that nice? Don't give him that. His stomach can't handle it. He'll get sick.
Oh, he's a cat. He's fine.
Told you.
Shut up. Did you take a Lactaid?
No. I'll be fine.
Told ya.
Shut up. You know where I saw this earlier? The bathtub.
Oh yeah, I needed to scrub it.
Yeah, but I just found it in the sink.
I needed to do dishes after. What? It touched soap. If it touched soap, that means it's clean.
You can't just make up your own rules to suit you as we play the game.
Well, stop taking the fun out of it then.
I'm not taking the fun out of it. What takes the fun out of it is when you cheat.
What's up? What's up?
You left the toilet seat up.
Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Just put it down. Don't pull my underwear. Stop pulling my underwear. Ah! You're all wet. Get off.
We're not made of money, you know. Because lights are money. Remember that time you threw up?
Okay, so what do you think about the video? What do you think? Common things, things you've experienced, something you've never heard of, or what? Which one? Common. Even funny, you think? Which one? What was funny?
Toenails.
The toenails. Toenails. Why was that funny? Because it happens, it's so common? Okay.
The towels also.
The towels. Why was that funny?
Because I agree with the guy.
Okay. Okay. Barb says what?
Because it has happened.
Because it has happened. Fred says because he agrees with the guy. John and Michelle say the toenails because it's so common. And it could be funny when it's not separated from other things, or when it is separated. What we're looking at is a community, talking about the military or couples, that they have those small fights that are funny, but in nexus, they are problematic. If you have those problems on top of domestic violence, it's not so funny. If you have those problems on top of financial distress, not so funny. Children, parents, bringing back in the home your parent that you're taking care of. Now, it's not as funny as when it's isolated and by itself. So what I want to talk about is just a tool that would help us help the couples that we'll be working with, whether or not it's in our private practices, whether or not it's in our churches, whether or not it's just in our community. Couples that we can work with and help them get past that. What I want you to do now is just what we call think, pair, share. So you've already kind of thought a little bit just about the video and how it was either funny or not, or what part really struck you. So now just whoever's next to you, whoever's at your table, just kind of talk amongst yourselves about what you thought about the video and maybe how could they have resolved the issue? Just pick one. They had a plenty to go through. But just take a few seconds and I'm just gonna be listening in. So. Can I walk up? Because I want to hear it. I'm Okay, while you're still talking, what I want you to do is just add if any of those issues are yours. Now, on a scale from 1 to 10, don't give me 10s. Not today, just do a 1 or 2, with 10 being those severe things. But just now share with your table 1 to 2, not 10s, of if you've had any of those issues. Is that clear? Okay.
One or two.
That's from severe. Okay, all right, let's turn back. So one of the things I've noticed is nobody had a problem when I said, have you had those issues? Nobody said, oh no, I've never had it and I don't have anything to talk about. Immediately, we all went to saying whatever it was. Even if it was just the disrespect within the couple saying, shut up, shut up, shut up to one another. So that stood out in one table. But to say, we don't have to look very far before we can find an issue. So what I want to do is real quickly share a tool that we can use hopefully. So remember, we're going to do another one the next time. I do not want you thinking that this one tool is everything. There's plenty of tools, but this is one that I have used for quite a while. So I want to actually use this one over here. And you have these on the center of your table. You can go ahead and turn those over. Okay, does everyone have one? Okay. So what I'm going to do is just kind of hold it up so you can see it. And then I'm going to tell you how my 9-year-old son used this. He's 22 now, but this is how long I've used this. And the fact that I showed it to my whole family. Okay, so I'm going to go around this as if it's a clock. So you'll see sensory data is going to be my 12 o'clock spot. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is what he did, and I'll walk you around the mat. He came one night, he should have been asleep. It was about 9:30 on a school night. And he says, I have an issue. This actually goes on the floor. So he stood in the middle on his issue. And he said, my issue is my bedtime, that it is too early. He goes around the mat. So now I'm at the, what is that? The 1 to 3. He says, I think you treat me like a baby. He was standing on his thoughts. Then for feelings, that's somewhere around the 3 to the 5, somewhere around there. He says, I feel like you don't trust me. Then he goes to the, what is that? Maybe the once for, the 9 position, 7, 8, 9. And you'll notice it's once for, but it has 3 compartments. Once for myself, once for others, and once for us. What he said was, I want, for me, my bedtime changed. And then he goes to the next block. And he says, in the past, now listen to this terminology, my bedtime has always been the same, and you never want to change it. Okay, little did he know that I would have given him whatever he wanted because he pulled out the mat, but I didn't tell him that. So he was able to track what he was feeling, but he missed a couple of things. Now, most of you have already had the techniques in counseling and the helping profession. So you know in basic communication that there's things that we want to really help our clients be able to identify. Things like I feel like. The minute you put like with I feel, it becomes a thought. It's not a feeling. I feel babied. I feel, I don't know, what else might he have felt? Because notice he said, I feel like. What do you think? He's 9 years old, he wants his bedtime changed, and he feels that I was babying him. So what could he have been feeling? I feel disrespected? I don't know. 9-year-old? What you think? He had enough sense to pull out the mat. So he probably could have been more in tune to what he was feeling had I helped him through the process, which I didn't, because he was communicating and I was a listener. Then when he said what he wanted, he didn't say what he wanted from me. One of the reasons I like this particular tool is because it's once for me, once for you, once for us. And then he gave some historical data that wasn't true. His bedtime has not always been too early. When we see those terms, you never, you always, as communication, we know those are red flags. So we want to immediately hold, if we're working with a couple, hold them accountable. Well, he was 9 and he pulled out the mat. So now, what I would like for you to do, you have these in front of you, and I'll just go ahead and put one up. But what you have in front of you is a mat. So now what I would like for you to do is to go with that same issue that you just had, whether or not it was the toenails, whether or not it was the decorative towel, whichever one you would like to use, but I want you to use the mat. So I'm going to take about 30 seconds to allow each of you to be the speaker. And then I'll come back in to let you know when that time is up. Is that clear, kind of what we're going to be doing? Okay, so have at it.
Make that a So what do we want? Yeah, okay, what do we want? Okay, I want us to negotiate. I want us to come to us and communicate. And the action is put it down.
Okay. Okay, did everyone have a chance to be the speaker? How did that go? Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the awareness wheel. So, Phyllis and Sherrod, S-H-E-R-O-D, Miller, actually in Colorado, are the originators of this. Now listen to this staggering number. 700,000 couples have used this tool since the 1970s. So this is not something that's new. And I like that because as we all know, we want whatever we use to be what? Evidence-based, efficacious. And we want to make sure that it does what it says it's going to do. 700,000 couples. I'm thinking it does what it says it's supposed to do. So you can find information about this tool and who they are simply, and it's on your sheet that's in front of you, simply by going to www.couplecommunications.com. Not couples with an S, couplecommunication.com. So Phyllis was actually an educational psychologist, and Sherrod is a social psychologist. So it's not just something that was thrown together. It's based on, as we can see, cognitive behavioral. You can see that, how it affects the mind and what you do. It's based on narrative, because these are the theories that you've already studied. It's based upon person-centered. So all of those are things that we use, and it's in this tool. But there was something that I left out, that my son left out when he used it. And I want to show that. He left out the listening wheel. So you also have this on the table. When someone else is talking, notice I had you both as speakers. That doesn't go very far. But that's usually what happens in many of our relationships. When we're trying to communicate, the other person is just thinking, formulating what they want to say when you finish. Whenever you hear someone say, "You're not listening to me, you don't hear me," then they're probably not listening. That's kind of a hard thing to say, but we think that listening is this easy thing to do, and it is not. When you are listening to someone, you are not formulating your response. That's not what listening is. Notice what this mat says. As a listener, I'm attending. That means I'm looking, I'm listening, I'm tracking, I'm acknowledging. That must be frustrating for you. Let's look at the decorative tile. I try to make the house look nice. That's my issue. And I really take pleasure in making it beautiful. And you just wash your face on it. A listener, what if he said something like, "I can see how that would be frustrating for you"? Or when my son says, "You don't want, you baby me, or you treat me like I'm a baby, or I feel like I'm a baby." And I pulled out the listening mat, because he did not. He just wanted to speak, say what he wanted to say, and he wanted it done. Well, while he was the speaker, I pulled out this mat, and I'm tracking, I'm acknowledging, I'm inviting for more. What we do when we're communicating is we want you to hurry up and finish so I can say what I want to say. Instead, it's, is there anything else? Is there something else you would like to say? Is there anything else you want to add? Then to summarize, so what I heard you say was, you've made the house look nice, or you try, and you feel dishonored by me, disrespected, devalued when I go in and I wash my face on the decorative tiles. Is there anything else? Then to ask open-ended questions. Something like, okay, can you explain to me why this is so important to you? Open-ended, as you know, is not yes or no. It's more than that. So with both mats, this is how it played out. And this is why he didn't pull them both out. And I'll put this one up as well, but you have it in front of you. What he didn't want to happen is for us to do the dance. So this is the dance. You start on the awareness wheel, and you're sharing what it is you feel. Mom, I feel that my curfew is too early. He was 9, but anyway. And he worked the mat. I'm listening, I'm attending, I'm tracking, I'm summarizing, I'm asking for more information. When he had nothing else, now we do the dance, where I get to be the speaker and he gets to be the listener, which is what he did not want to happen. So when I was on the awareness wheel, my issue was also his bedtime. But my thoughts were that it was sufficient for a 9-year-old. And I felt helpless, hopeless, and frustrated whenever he wants to stay up late and gets up in the morning and he's irritable. What I wanted for myself, do you notice that I'm moving? So I'm walking the mat in my mind. I'm not suggesting that every one of your clients will want to have this mat on the floor and they're standing and walking it. But I am suggesting that they know it so they can at least process what they're feeling. When you have oftentimes some people that are very cognitive focused, they stay in their mind. They're never able to drop down here. Or you have people that are all the way, always here in their heart, and they're not able to move out of that realm. There's goodness in the mat for that. So I'm still walking the mat in my mind because I know what's on it. So my issue again was his bedtime. My thoughts were it was sufficient for what for his age. And I felt hopeless, frustrated in the morning because he was grumpy without enough sleep. What I wanted for me was to not have to fight with him in the morning. What I wanted for him was a sense of empowerment. And what I wanted for us was to be able to come to an agreement of how we could change his bedtime or negotiate. In the past, he's always had issues sleeping, and this is what I was telling him. You've always had difficulty just going to bed, so I did understand that. Presently, which was in the past when he was 9, remember I said he's 22, he would stay up for a long time, an hour in the bed, not being able to go to sleep. In the future, I wanted us to negotiate something that would be better for his bedtime. So here I am working the mat because now he's a listener and I'm the speaker. So this is not necessarily about problem solving, because for those of you that do integrative therapy, we know that the Bible says it's foolishness to try to solve a matter before you hear it. So we need to be able to understand what's happening so we can solve it. That's just integrative. To know how is it that I do this for those of you that work with the Christian population, and I know a couple of you do. So when you're using integrative, you definitely want to bring the Bible into it for those that are doing that work. But for those of you that are not, still use the tool. So now what I would like to do is our last Think, Pair, and Share. We have about 5 minutes. And so I want you to now do the same, but with the listening piece. So we have now done it a couple of different ways where we just talked about an issue, recognizing that none of us can go very far without having something, whether it's a bedtime, whether it's towels, whether it's toenails. But when I had you do it the first time, you did it as both speakers. And just waiting probably for your turn, which is what happens. So while the other person was talking, I saw a couple of you looking at them like, okay, this is what I'm gonna say and these are the places that I'm gonna go. Well, now you have the full tool. And I want you to do the same thing with the speaker and an active listener, and then do the dance. Which means once the speaker is finished and the listener has invited for more information and there is none, now you just switch. Is everybody clear with the setup of that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so just take a couple of seconds, 30 seconds or so as a speaker and a listener, then do the dance, and I'll time you, and then I'll just let you know when we're finished. Do you need something? Are you good? Okay, so let's start wrapping up the first speaker, and now let's do the dance when you guys get to a closing place. I see. Don back there, I don't know what he's doing, but he's cracking up. Okay, how'd that feel? How'd that feel this time? So one of the things that I was noticing as I'm just kind of looking out at you, that there's more engagement. I see people actually leaned in this time and really trying to track, because now we have a framework around what good listening looks like. So I want to read this last, are there any questions? Any issues with using the awareness wheel or the listening cycle? Okay. I want to read this quote, and it's out of the text, but I also want to show one final video, and it's very short. So this one I'll have to preface for you because it's 13 seconds and it's that quick. But let me read the quote first. Experimental studies suggest that when people hear arguments against their will, they become involved in attempting to refute the argument rather than listening and understanding. Let me read it one more time. Experimental studies suggest that when people hear arguments against their will, they become involved in attempting to refute the argument rather than listening and understanding. So you have that quote on your PowerPoint, and it's from Savinsky and McKeechee, 2014 on page 52, just to be very specific, and it's also listed in your references. So the video that I'm going to show you is from one of my favorite movies, X-Men, and it's X-Men 2. The character is named Colossus, and he turns into metal, and whenever there's opposing forces coming against him. So the scene, like I said, I'll preface it because it's 13 seconds. It'll go quickly. When there's danger, he armors up, and he turns into this metallic something that can push off bullets. And then he throws the people that he's feeling threatened by through the door. So that's how quick it's going to be. But it reminds me of this quote. Because he's getting some opposition, he puts on his armor, and then he beats him down gently. So that's what happens in relationships when we have this horrible communication. Things like, you're not listening, you don't hear my heart, you don't even know me, are you even paying attention? Whatever variation we say that, it still means the same thing. So let's close, if there are no more questions, let's close with watching this video. And of course, next week we're going to do prep. And after that, we're going to do the neuroscience of communication. Okay, let's watch.